Hello and welcome back today to another threat assessment video. Today, get ready to be denied because we are going to be talking about Glen Elendra Archmage. Glen Elendra Archmage is a blue fairy wizard with 2 power and 2 toughness that costs 3 and 1 blue mana. It has flying and also reads, pay 1 blue, sacrifice Glen Elendra Archmage, counter target non-creature spell. Now, Glen Elendra Archmage also has a fun little ability called Persist. When this creature is put into a graveyard from play, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to play under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. Glen Elendra Archmage is a classic example of 2-for-1, which is a great rate of exchange in a game of Magic. Spending 1 card to deal with 2 or 3 cards, that's exactly where you want to be, especially when there's 3 opponents on the field. However, if this comes down on your opponent's side of the field, you might have something to worry about. I love playing Glen Elendra Archmage for the primary reason of having a counterspell that sits on the battlefield right until the time that I need it. It makes my opponents sweat a little bit more, not knowing if I will activate Glen Elendra to counter perhaps a single target removal spell aimed at my commander. And these are things that you should keep in mind if your opponent has a Glen Elendra Archmage on the field. One of the most dangerous things about Glen Elendra is how easy it is to reset Persist so that you can keep reusing the activated ability. Is your opponent playing green? Well, they might just have Melira Sylvok Outcast. That's right. Creatures you control can't have -1/-1 counters placed on them. Are they playing black? You might just see Mikaeus the Unhallowed. The important ability on Mikaeus here is other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. Undying reads, when a creature with Undying dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. The importance here for Mikaeus' Undying ability functions specifically in layering. You see, once Glen Elendra dies and Persist and Undying both trigger, your opponent can choose which ability they want to use to return the Glen back to the field. If they use Persist on the first one, and it comes back with a -1/-1 counter, the next time Glen Elendra dies, they can simply use Undying to return it back to the field with a +1/+1 counter. And then when it dies again, because it didn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, they can use Persist to bring it back. I think you see the problem here. Are they playing white? Take care if they are. They have several outlets here. Perhaps they have Vizier of Remedies that negates the -1/-1 counters that would get landed on. Perhaps they have Solemnity, that simply states that counters can't be put on creatures. Or perhaps they are running Dennery Kiln as their commander, which, if it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter, all of a sudden, that +1/+1 counter will negate the -1/-1 counter from Glen's persist ability. Well, what if they're just playing mono blue? Surely there's no way to abuse it here. That's where you're wrong. Spark Double from War of the Spark comes in as a copy of a creature, but with a +1/+1 counter on it. Once it dies, that persist ability will trigger and return it to the battlefield, where it can again become a copy of Glen Elendra Archmage, with a counter that negates and resets that persist. This can make Glen Elendra very tricky to get rid of. I think the best option here for keeping a Glen Elendra in check is simply forcing the activations of Glen before they get a permanent on the battlefield that lets them abuse the persist. I know I love playing Glen Elendra Archmage. How about you? And have you seen it employed at a table in a vicious manner? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. And if you have any ideas on cards you would like me to cover in the future, please post them below. Thank you all. Have a great day, and let's keep assessing.